Now, let me ask you something. If you weren't paying your fees to, say, a tennis or a golf club, would you really expect to be able to use the courts or the course for free? No, I thought as much. Then what on earth possessed the doctors and other medical staff at the BMA conference voting in favour of putting a stop to charging foreign patients for NHS care? Some of these mad medics, who are clearly a case for treatment themselves, even said the practice made health staff, quotes, complicit in racism and was, quotes again, a fundamentally racist endeavour. This is pure and simple health tourism. Remember, it's not A&E provision, which is available to all, and by its very nature, the actual cost can never be known. It's anywhere between 200 million or £2 billion. If you're in agony right now, waiting for an operation, or you've been denied crucial drugs due to the postcode lottery that is part of our healthcare system, I reckon you'd feel all that money could be better spent. These are one set of doctor's orders it's best to ignore.
Nick, in principle, I think I agree with you. That I do think if you don't pay into a system, you shouldn't be able to take out of that system, other than exceptional circumstances, which is what emergencies are.
Yes, of course.
Yeah. The problem with it is we don't know how much actually it would cost to actually do it, to actually run a properly effective system. And it could be that actually the cost would be more. I mean, I certainly don't agree with the doctors who were saying, the one or two doctors who said it was racist.
Yeah,
I don't think it's anything.
A narrow number.
I don't think it's anything to do with race. It's to do with that it's perfectly valid to charge people who come over here to have an operation for us to charge them. That's perfectly valid. The question is, how difficult is that process? And would you get in, and does the actual collection of the money cost you more than you would actually get?
I hope you haven't had to. If you've attended A&E recently, as I had to with one of my sons, the first thing you're asked is, who's your GP? By the man or woman at the desk. I don't know that it has to be that hard. But you're right, if the sums don't add up, we're just throwing money away. I couldn't see you in my eyeline as I was going through that.
Well, that's probably for the best. I don't agree with you, Greg, that this isn't a racial issue. No. Because if you look at other public services where, under the hostile environment, there were restrictions on people who don't have their immigration status resolved, look at teachers and social workers who said they were being turned into police forces or spies who were expected to start interrogating children as to their family background and immigration status. Now, guess who were the prime targets for that kind of inquiry? It wasn't white children. It was children who were visibly other. It was children who don't speak English as a first language or who were not white. And they were the ones who found themselves being asked about their background, sometimes given this kind of presumption of guilt that they were assumed they didn't have the right to be in the country unless they proved otherwise. Look at the Windrush scandal. People who were entitled to be in Britain being denied life-saving treatment wrongly, even though they had every right to be in this country because they didn't have a document from the 1970s.
Are you saying this is like, just in a sense, you're saying this is like Windrush?
I'm saying that I'm not saying this is the same as Windrush, but I'm saying that I think it's far too simplistic to assume that there's no potential for racial profiling.
But they chase Australians and Canadians.
Yeah, in theory, but in reality, in other areas where they've introduced restrictions.
Let's get June.
Can I just to kind of finish that point, and then I know June needs to come in.
Yeah.
I think I have more respect for doctors than you who work in the service. Now, the point is, A&E is free, right? A&E will remain free.
Yes.
What doctors say is that emergencies don't come out of nowhere. They build up gradually. Now, if you deny primary care to people at an earlier preventative stage, they end up costing you more in emergency services. And for that reason, it's not only ideologically problematic, but I think practically it is not a good solution.
I don't agree with you on this one. I agree with you in terms of what you said about the Windrush kids and ethnic minority children in our schools. I think this is completely different. To me, this is just like when I go to America as a foreign person, if I cannot prove that I have some way of paying for my treatment, I will not be treated.
In America, everyone has to prove they can pay for their treatment.
No, but as a foreign person, you have to prove even more so. You have to prove you've got international insurance that covers you health-wise. So to me, I see this as that. I don't think this is a racial thing. I think this is about if you can't prove that you actually legitimately are eligible for that service,
I do
you
think
won't
this is
get
different,
it.
June, because it's a free service in this country. So the only people
But
who
what they're saying
have
is
to
it
prove
should
are
be-
people who are foreign, and that places a
Precisely,
bigger burden on
but that's
proving that
not
you're foreign.
racial.
Okay.
That's anyone that's not from
You've
It
raised-
shouldn't be. It shouldn't be.
Carol,
I agree
you've
with
raised your
that.
eyebrows. You've heard Windrush battered between the two.
I can't believe that. I just think it's got nothing to do with it. You know, those 500 doctors at the BMA who voted for this, they're the very doctors who are always talking about the pressures on the NHS, the lack of staff, the lack of resources. We've had to give the NHS £20 billion more a year. What do you think is going to happen, which is what the BMA wants, if we open our doors to the world? And what they've said is everyone, it should be free at the point of delivery to anyone who wants it. How are we going to pay for that? It's ludicrous. It's a ludicrous disregard for reality to imagine this.
Can I
Greg,
just say what the
are you in a second? We
BMA...
have-
Can I just say what the
You can in a
BMA...
minute, but Greg first, then
But there has
Constance.
been a significant increase in waiting times. Therefore, I don't quite understand how people come across here and get through. You know, if you've got to wait 3 months or 6 months.
From abroad.
you can-
I know people that do it. You
And
can
if you-
apply from abroad for your treatment.
Pregnant women who come, they're ready to give birth, so they don't have to wait very long. If they get here and they give birth a week later, and we know there have been cases where that has happened.
But you wouldn't stop that, would you?
No, I wouldn't stop that, of course.
You wouldn't stop. If
No, of
somebody
course
comes
I-
from
We don't
abroad who's
encourage it.
pregnant.
No, we do, yes,
What's the BMA
exactly.
The
saying,
BMA
Apple?
says, our members feel strongly that NHS care is free at the point of delivery and that this principle must be enacted. Charges deter people from seeking the care they need. This damages not only their own health, but may have implications for public health too. And again, these are the
But if it
people
deters
who
people
work
in every
services.
country in the world from coming, good.
What the risk that you have. Look, I'm not dismissive of the need for us to manage resources in the National Health. So I don't want to appear to say that there's no issue with this. Of course, there's so much pressure, and people who are entitled to treatment deserve the best treatment. I think that doctors, the reason that doctors are weary is that you then create a two-tier system where you push people underground. They don't seek help when they need it. They end up costing the system more. I'm yet to see a convincing study that shows that this would actually save us
But the
money
reason
in the long term.
the
if
reason
that
we
is the
don't have a
goal.
study is because we don't know, because doctors will, even now they're not identifying people and they're not charging people. So it's not, we don't know how much it costs.
Let's actually hear from Shyamantha Asokan speaking from Doctors of the World.
Many of the doctors we work with, they don't want to be border guards. That's how they see these kinds of rules. They just want to treat the person who's in front of them, and they don't want to feel like they have to pick and choose in terms of income and immigration status. But instead, we've got a rule that obviously goes against that, and also it's just creating more work for NHS staff at a time when they're already incredibly overstretched.
Well, I think that's the point. I mean, when I read through the figures, I mean, you might save 500 million. In terms of the NHS, that is peanuts. And if
Or you
Oh,
might
it is.
say,
Tell that to
you might
someone now
say,
who
yes.
No, yeah, you can
Yes.
say, you can always
Come
find someone
on,
who needs the hip
Greg.
operation, but it's in terms of the overall budget of the NHS, it's peanuts. And if actually it's going to cost you more than
It's
that
about
to
4
collect
days
it,
running of it, wasn't
Yes.
it? About something, so just under a
if
week.
it's going to cost you more to collect that, which I
Yeah,
suspect
but
it
that's a
would.
valid
Now,
point.
if the figure was the 3-4 billion,
Yeah.
you're talking about something different.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what the Department of Health say. The NHS is a national, not an international health service. It's only right and fair that overseas visitors who need non-urgent care pay for it up front if they want the treatment in the UK. Our guidance is clear that urgent or immediately necessary care should never be withheld or delayed, regardless of whether a person can pay. June, coming back to your regular trips to the United States, you wouldn't even get A&E, what they would call casualty room care, without a credit card or insurance, would you?
without insurance.
So, I mean, we are
and
ahead of the game there.
And they also need international insurance. They are so hardcore. If you're not actually resident there, you need to prove it.
And why should British taxpayers subsidise healthcare for the rest of the world? You know, people talk about the National Health Service like it's free. It's not free. We pay for it.